This is an article that I wrote for the Hipfish for March 2020. It's called 5G, Not a Bra Size. Tempting as it may be to simplistically consider 5G the solution for communities worldwide, in a vain attempt to bring wireless connection everywhere, exposing biological life, including humans, without health and safety studies, doesn't really make sense, even though 98% of Americans today use wireless phones. Of course, dead spots and slow connections make folks perfectly miserable. But it is not as if using 5G is the only way to access the internet and connect with others. When we attempt to use technologies, in spite of thousands of peer-reviewed scientific studies clearly showing toxicity to our biology, our heart, brain, and central nervous system that disrupt hormone systems and cause cancer, it's sort of like burning the house down to get rid of mold. Effective, sure, but what are you left with? Marketing 5G to us. Verizon states, "We are powering the world with the fourth industrial revolution with 5G. We are blurring the lines between physical and digital. Everything that can be connected will be. We are calling it the new cyber-physical era, building on technologies such as artificial intelligence, AI, robotics, and biotechnology. Our immersion into their world of cyber-physical promises not one sector of our life will go unchallenged," says Verizon. "We are changing the way we learn, work, live, and play." Some concerned scientists are saying that the speed and frequency of this innovation are changing who we are as people, rewiring our brains. If getting informed is the first step toward understanding what industry has in store for humanity, then let us take a deep dive into this technology. A little history. 150 years ago, Thomas Edison wired New York City following the invention of electromagnetism in 1819, opening a vast world of discovery in the electric frequency spectrum. The telegraph invention in 1844 was eclipsed by the telephone in 1876. Linda Rodstad's grandfather invented the first electric stove in 1914. By 1946, the first commercial mobile phones linked moving vehicles via wireless electromagnetic radio wave, EMR, frequencies. And a year later, the first long-distance phone call. Skipping forward, by 1980, 1G cell phone technology was marketed. Simultaneously, the development of hardwired fiber optic cable technology began reaching consumers. Cell phone ownership in the US rose to 86.1 million, 32% of the US population, with the introduction of 2G technology in the late 1990s. By the early 2000s, 3G technology was available, followed in 2010 with 4G. Today, the number of cell phones eclipses the world population. 7.5 billion people with 8.4 billion cell phones and another 8 billion wireless transmitting devices. Industry projects 75.4 billion wireless devices by 2025. Hang on, folks, we're going for a ride. Are we ready for 5G and Internet of Things? Interconnecting everything from our smartphones, homes, offices, schools, hospitals, cars, cities, roads full of driverless vehicles, our babies' diapers chipped to let us know when they need a change and our dog or cat need to be fed. Our lives flushed with virtual reality, screens replacing our own reality, that walk on the beach, enjoying watching salmon and crabbing boats on the Columbia, that glimpse of a whale pod off the shores of Seaside or Gearhart, let alone the touch of another's hand. Do we want to live lives where technology replaces our needs to pay attention or to be responsible to our lives without the constant beep of an electronic device reminding us to live our lives, to take out the garbage rather than living our lives? In a recent phone conversation with Mayor Henry Ballisper III, City of Warrenton, Oregon, Henry said, "When it comes to millennials and Generation Z, most of my generation sees the convenience and pleasure of using social media as an acceptable trade. And this is exactly what the telecomers are banking upon, quite literally, predicting a $17 trillion bonanza with 5G fully functioning." So what is 5G really about, you might ask? International engineering consultant Timothy Sheckley, PhD, says that 5G technology is little about our cell phone communication and all about government and industry gathering, storing, and transmitting our data to then sell to third-party companies we have no control over, let alone agreement for this transfer of our personal data. Shoshana Zuboff, PhD, Emeritus of Harvard Business School, parallels Sheckley's perspective in her book Surveillance Capital, pointing out that capitalism has historically been based on labor as the key economic driver. Now the marketplace is mining data derived upon our personal experiences. The capacity to gather data on us through every chipped device via our Wi-Fi homes and businesses leaves us vulnerable to anyone who wishes to look into our lives, from collecting data on our habits of when we sleep or eat or drink, what we drink, or how much we consume, who and when we entertain friends and family, every action in our smart homes in every intimate manner conceivable, right down to when we leave and return. And with this data, we can be marketed as well as watched 24/7. Forbes reports that we will see an increase in workforce automation, with estimates over the next 10 to 20 years of 14% of jobs at high risk being automated, while another 30% at risk of significant change. News reports indicate that this will include teachers, doctors, nurses, bankers, news anchors, and journalists, post office employees, retail clerks, and long-haul truckers. It appears no sector is immune to this plan. In 2019, the UK Observer's headlines reported, Banks will replace 200,000 workers with robots by next decade. T.W. Kang, the managing director of Synergy Global Associates, says that 5G will create a tremendous dislocation of society, a hyper-polarization with the winners take all. Technology development has not slowed down, he said. By 2025 to 2039, there will exist parity between human and machine connections. What exactly is 5G, or what is it not? The initial marketing of 5G wireless technology, promising speeds upwards of 100 times faster than 4G, is currently scaled back using an upgraded 4G technology, 4G LTE Advanced. Projections for performance for 5G millimeter waves have run into financial and technological glitches, say telecom spokespeople. But when installed, 5G is primarily reserved for neighborhoods near and in downtowns of densely populated cities and high public venues like arenas and stadiums, according to Sheckley. To use these technologies, small transmitters are installed every few hundred feet on the local right-of-way. Verizon told Astoria City Council last December that they intend to place 4G LTE advanced transmitters in high traffic areas, downtown and on the outskirts, with promises of future 5G upgrades in the denser areas. 4G LTE Advanced is essentially the same technology as 4G, but more highly modulated and pulsed. While it is not as fast as 5G, it is actually more dangerous because the modulation and pulsing, combined with its 120-degree signal, casts a nearly contiguous blanket of electromagnetic radiation waves constantly. 5G signals, on the other hand, are sent out Only if a 5G-enabled phone calls for a connection, making them on demand with a narrow 10-degree spread, according to Orem Miller, Los Angeles biobiologist. Alternatives to 5G wireless technology and why. Martin Pall, PhD, Professor Emeritus of Biochemistry and Basic Medical Sciences, advocates for using advantages of our high-tech technologies, but much more safely with hardwired copper or fiber optic cables directly to the buildings. Fiber optic cables of light on strands of glass fiber are dependable with faster speeds than all other technologies, capable of larger volumes of calls than satellites and 5G technology, inherently cyber secure, resistant to inclement weather, and safe to biology from exposure to EMR frequencies. Sheckley asserts that self-driving cars, remote surgery, video gaming, and virtual reality run successfully on fiber optics, and that 5G is just hype. That the benefits of 5G are already delivered by 4G, that the 5G expanded antenna densification is an add-on cousin to 4G. It's mostly smoke and mirrors, he says. According to Santa Barbara attorney Julian Gresser, we have the capacity to run all businesses with fiber sustainably and securely. Today, fiber optic networks are locally owned and installed, thereby capturing the benefits of this with local jobs. Not unlike water lines and septic systems, they can be incorporated into every urban and rural environment. Wireless technologies use 10 times more energy than fiber, with fiber consuming the least amount of energy of any other technology. The small transmitter proliferation will increase energy by another 10 times, says Sheckley, and with only 1% of internet traffic may be useful. Its energy guzzling is not sustainable with 5 to 10% of the world's energy doubling every few years. Besides, he says, fiber is best for fixed things, and wireless best for things that move. Why then is wireless inside, we might ask? In 1999, 375 top companies in the microwave industry decided to go wireless and coined the term Wi-Fi. Their decision to not use fiber optics as their mainstay gave them a new and more profitable direction. Wireless components are minimally taxed and regulated compared to wired services. Oh, that's why. What about government oversight? The U.S. federal agency, the Federal Communication Commission, the FCC, regulates communications and sets safety standards for health exposures to cell phones. They set guidelines in 1996 based upon a study for non-thermal effects after monitoring a 6-minute cell phone call. In 2011, the World Health Organization, the WHO, classified wireless technologies a Class 2B probable human carcinogen. At the recommendation of the FDA, the National Toxicology Program began a 14-year-long, $25 million study on the carcinogenicity of cell phone radiation. Their 2018 results revealed clear evidence of DNA damage and heart, brain, and adrenal cancer in laboratory animals. Italian Ramazzini Institute's peer-reviewed study resulted in the same findings. The National Toxicology Program's recommendation to the WHO to upgrade wireless technologies to Class 1 human carcinogen remains unheeded. It became clear when President Obama appointed Tom Wheeler, a prior head of a wireless industry group, to chair the FCC in 2013, that a conflict of interest sullied the agency's credibility. Today, attorney Ajit Pai, appointed by President Trump, also straddles the cell phone industry. Numerous lawsuits against the FCC are being filed. In January, a group of scientists, consumer health nonprofits, and citizens filed an historic suit for refusing to update its 24-year-old cell phone and wireless EMR guidelines, followed in February by Robert Kennedy Jr.'s Children's Health Defense for wireless harms for its December 4, 2019 decision to decline to review its 1996 guidelines, and it's for its determination that the guidelines are protective of human health. Wireless and 5G in schools are most vulnerable. The same year President Barack Obama appointed Wheeler to chair the FCC, he announced nearly $3 billion from the FCC and several private tech companies to bring wireless technology to 99% of American school kids, according to U.S. News of 2014. 6 years later, Portland citizen advocate David Morrison spearheaded SB 283, signed by Governor Kate Brown, making Oregon the first state in the nation to pass legislation requiring state health authority review of scientific studies showing risk of harm from electromagnetic radiation technology used in schools. Alaska Senator Tom Begich is introducing Senate Bill 142 this month in the state legislature, and California plans action soon to follow in these footsteps. Countries around the world have already restricted wireless in daycare centers, preschool, and grade school, France, Israel, and Cyprus, to name but a handful. Frankfurt hardwires internet connections and has for over a decade. Austria since 2005, along with Italy and Spain. On the local level, while the implication of 5G wireless technology might appear daunting, there are many viable alternatives and precautions to implement on the local level. We have only to look back a few years in Clatsop County's history to the advocates who campaigned for their community rights, asserting no LNG terminal in Warrenton, and most recently, an Astoria opt-out of wireless smart meters to know that citizens have local power. The FCC has gone far beyond the law and is very vulnerable, says Sheckley, and the community's hands are not tied. But first, we must clearly see the emperor's new clothes. And one thing is most certain as we unfold the layers. 5G is not a bra size.